How do we have government do what it needs to do, but allow us to be free so that we can do what we do? Because we know that government can't produce anything. That's a key distinction. Government can't produce anything. It has to take before it has anything. Has anybody ever paid a tax dollar? When they take from you, that's their money. Now, true, they get to print money and even come up with digital. It's amazing. Can you imagine how wealthy you could be if you could use a computer to make your own money? That still wouldn't be production, though, would it? You'd be following Bastiat's law, if you remember that in the 5 laws of decline. So we want to get to concord. We want to have enough force to stay out of chaos, but not enough force to where all of a sudden everything you try to do, you got to check with the state first. Because the state starts doing things. It starts telling you what professions you can be in. It starts telling you you need all these licenses. It starts telling you all of these other factors. You don't want to have that much. You want to get this pendulum pegged in concord, because all of the greatest countries in the world, and America for so many years, had concord. And that is ordered liberty. When you have liberty, that you can make decisions and you don't have to worry as you accumulate wealth that someone's going to come over and just take your wealth. If you knew that you could work hard and then tomorrow all your money would just be taken from you anyway, how many would be hesitant to work hard? I don't really even need to ask the question, because I can look at every single communistic government that has ever existed. And if I almost brought the chart, but it's so depressing in a sense. It's like when you see it's the freedom, the amount of freedom in society and the production of society is so directly correlated. Less freedom in society, less production, to the point where they can't even produce enough to feed themselves. Can you imagine? I mean, human beings are they're the most creative, rational, thinking, can think long-term. They can certainly way past feed themselves. So how can a society get so bad it can't even take care of itself? Because the state increases to the point that it's controlling the society. It's coercion of the society. And when it gets into coercion, that power pendulum swings that far, we lose the very fruits. We ask government to do something, but they didn't just do what they were supposed to do. They did a whole bunch of things they weren't supposed to do, and in the process destroyed the very thing they were supposed to protect. We got to stop that. You say, well, all right. Now I'm going to attempt to do something. This is crazy. I shouldn't even do this, because I'm about ready to attempt to give you a 4,000-year history lesson in the next 20 minutes. Let me start with the ancient Greeks. If you've had a history class, you'll have to let me know afterwards if you understand a little bit more. The ancient Greeks, let's look at this power pendulum, and it's the ancient Greeks had Athens and Sparta were the 2 big cities. And Athens and Sparta united together against this really bad guys, this big empire called the Persian Empire. And the Persian Empire was that big bad bully that kept saying, oh, look at that wealth over there, let's go take that. Gobble, gobble, gobble. And they weren't a turkey, but they did gobble it all up. And then they saw another one and they expanded. You could walk at a brisk pace, you could walk for 7 days and still be in the Persian Empire. It was so big and expansive. They owned practically all the old world. And then they saw Greece, and they were upset at Athens for defending one of their sister cities. And they said, well, let's go into Athens. And the king of Persia had a herald every day say, don't forget about those Athenians that protected one of their cities. Don't forget that, sir. For 2 years, every morning, the king was reminded that he had to go get those Athenians. So he finally marched into Greece, and he was going to take over Greece. That was the freest country of the old world. They were actually city-states. They weren't even really a nation like we'd think of today. They were independent city-states. The sovereignty resided in each individual city. And the king said, well, this is going to be easy. I'll just attack that city, make a deal with that city not to attack that until I beat this one, then I'll go take the next one. And Athens realized they were in trouble. So they called a big council, and they convinced Sparta, who was the strongest military at the time, They convinced them all to team together, and all of the independent city-states united together to defend themselves against Sparta. And amazingly, on the fields of Marathon, they had an amazing victory. And after a couple more victories, they actually defeated Persia. And they consider today that Western civilization exists because of the bravery, the courage of ancient Greece to unite together and defend their freedoms against the Persian Empire. Now, I wish I could tell you it had a happy ending, but guess what happened? Athens realized, man, we beat Persia, and Sparta thought, we beat Persia. And then, now that they had no enemy, you know how a common enemy unites internally? External conflict creates internal unity. Well, now that the external enemy was gone, all of a sudden Sparta started saying, well, we were the ones mainly responsible for that. And Athens said, no, 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 we were the ones mainly responsible for that. And then they started building little different groups together. The Athenian Empire launched, the Spartan Empire, the Athenian League and Spartan Leagues. And these confederations started battling each other. Look what happened. They went from concord when they had a common enemy to where once the common enemy was gone, they started battling. Well, who's really the ruler of Greece? See, that's the question. Anytime you can't answer that, who is the leader of the country? And if it's not sure who is the state, who is the government, then rest assured there's going to be a battle because there's power. And people are going to seek that power. So Athens tried to say, we're the leaders of Greece. Sparta said, we're the leaders of Greece. And 100+ years of civil war later, nobody was the leader of Greece because they lost their freedoms to Macedonia. You see, you've got to have somebody that's got to be responsible for that internal and external defense. And they didn't answer that question in ancient Greece. These independent cities could link up with whoever. There was no nation, there was no central power strong enough to say, Persia, you stay out, and other than that, you're free to do what you guys want. We won't control you, but we'll make sure the enemy doesn't get you, and we'll make sure that these cities don't fight with each other. There wasn't a strong enough power to ensure that Sparta and Athens didn't fight each other, so they did. And all kinds of other cities joined both sides, and they ruined the classic Greek culture that we still enjoy many of the benefits today. Anybody been to Greece? Anybody been to Athens? Man, I can't wait for you guys to be able to go over there. It's amazing. When you just see the architecture that's still left. After all these many years, you realize what an incredible, creative people. And what they created from having freedom. But there's a great lesson to be learned. That you got to have some type of government strong enough to make sure that cities, can you imagine if Indianapolis attacked Chicago? That wouldn't be so fun. I'm glad that we have a central government of some type to make sure that cities and states don't go to war. So it's important to have a central government. I'm not an anarchist. But limited government's different than just wide open. But the Greece failed by not having a strong enough central government. The pendulum moved over to chaos, gone.